When God brings someone into your life, one of the clearest ways you can tell they are meant for you is that they draw you closer to Him, not further away. Think about it. God will never send you someone who makes you compromise your faith, who makes you feel guilty for following Him, or who leads you down a path that dishonors His word. Instead, the person God has chosen for you will stir your heart to love Him more deeply. They will inspire you to pray more, to trust more, and to believe more fully in the promises of God. Love, when it comes from the Lord, is never meant to be a distraction from Him, but a reflection of Him. So often, we confuse attraction with calling and emotions with purpose. But you can measure the authenticity of someone's role in your life by asking a simple question. Do they make me want to be closer to God? Do they encourage me when I am weak? Do they remind me of who I am in Christ when I forget? If the answer is yes, then you are seeing the fingerprints of God on that relationship. For when God chooses someone for you, that person will not be content with you settling in your faith. They will push you gently, but firmly toward the life God has designed for you. This doesn't mean they will be perfect, because none of us are. But it does mean that their influence on your life is healthy, uplifting, and Christ-centered. They won't ridicule your faith. They will share it. They won't belittle your values. They will honor them. They won't lead you into temptation. They will stand beside you in purity and commitment. When the Lord unites two people, it is so much bigger than romance. It becomes a partnership in faith. Two people who pray together, worship together, and grow together can withstand storms that would break them apart if they were standing alone. Sometimes we make the mistake of clinging to relationships that constantly drain us, people who take us further from the presence of God. We excuse it by saying, maybe they'll change, or maybe God will fix them. But the truth is, if someone is pulling you away from your faith, that's not God's gift for you. The enemy will often disguise distractions as blessings. But the fruit always reveals the root. If being with someone causes you to pray less, worship less, or believe less, then you must have the courage to see that for what it is. But when God sends the right person, you won't have to sacrifice your relationship with Him. Instead, it will flourish like never before. Think of how powerful it is when someone loves you and, at the same time, loves the God you serve. There's a deep safety in knowing that the person standing beside you prays for you when you don't even realize it. There's strength in knowing that when you're weary, they will point you back to God, not to themselves. That's love in its purest form. Not a love that competes with God, but one that flows out of Him. And so, if you're wondering whether someone is truly the one God has chosen for you, don't just look at how they make you feel in the moment. Look at how they impact your soul. Do they inspire you to live closer to the heart of Christ? Do they encourage your faith, even in the little things? Do they lead you toward peace instead of chaos? That's the evidence that God's hand is at work, because the right person won't just love you. They will love God with you. And when you find that, you can know without a shadow of a doubt that God Himself has written that love story, because only He can bring two hearts together in such a way that they grow closer to each other by growing closer to Him. Another sign that God has placed someone special in your life is that they bring peace to your heart rather than confusion or chaos. When God ordains a relationship, He does not fill it with turmoil, constant doubt, or endless striving to make it work. Instead, He breathes His peace into it, the kind of peace that settles deep within your spirit. Scripture tells us that God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. And if He is the one writing your love story, then the relationship will reflect His nature. It doesn't mean there won't be challenges or disagreements, but even in the midst of those moments, there will be an underlying assurance that you are right where you're supposed to be. Too often, we stay in relationships that are full of uncertainty, constantly questioning whether this person is truly meant for us. We lie awake at night, rehearsing conversations in our minds, feeling restless and uneasy. But when God chooses someone for you, His Spirit will whisper calmness to your soul. Even when you face obstacles together, you won't feel abandoned or lost. Instead, you'll sense a quiet confidence that God is with both of you, and that the relationship is under His covering. That inner peace is God's way of affirming that you are walking in His will. There is a difference between the temporary excitement of attraction and the enduring peace of God's confirmation. Attraction might thrill you for a while, but it can fade quickly if it isn't built on God's foundation. Peace, however, sustains you. It holds you steady when emotions rise and fall. It allows you to walk forward with trust instead of fear. You may not have all the answers about the future, but you'll know in your spirit that God has aligned your path with someone who is meant to journey with you. That assurance cannot be manufactured by human effort. It is a gift from God. You'll also find that when the right person is in your life, your relationship doesn't have to be forced. You don't have to constantly manipulate circumstances, chase after their attention, or fight for their loyalty. There will be a natural flow, because what God ordains, He also sustains. The person He chooses for you won't leave you feeling insecure or unwanted. They won't keep you guessing about their commitment. Instead, their presence in your life will affirm what God has already placed in your heart, and the peace you feel with them will be a reflection of the peace you find in God Himself. Think about how powerful it is to have a relationship that mirrors God's peace in every season. When storms come, instead of tearing you apart, they bring you closer together. When decisions have to be made, you don't have to carry the burden alone, because you know you have someone who will pray with you, stand with you, and seek God's wisdom with you. That is the kind of peace that no amount of human planning or striving can achieve. It is the kind of peace that only comes when God Himself has placed His hand on a relationship. If you are in a place right now where your heart is unsettled, always questioning and wondering if someone is truly right for you, take that as a sign to pause and seek God's voice. He will not leave you in confusion when He has prepared something so precious for your future. He will speak through His Spirit, through His Word, and through the fruit you see in the relationship. And when it's the right one, you will not have to live in doubt or fear. You will walk in the steady calm of God's assurance, knowing that His peace is the anchor that keeps you grounded. Because when God gives you someone special, the deepest evidence of His hand is not found in constant passion or excitement, but in the unshakable peace that assures your heart you are right where He wants you to be. Another sign that God has placed someone special in your life is that they inspire you to grow closer to Him. The right person will not draw you away from your faith, nor will they tempt you to compromise the convictions God has placed in your heart. Instead, their presence will encourage you to seek God more earnestly, to pray more consistently, and to live more faithfully. They will not replace your relationship with God, but rather strengthen it, because they themselves know the importance of walking with Him. It is a beautiful thing when two people can kneel together in prayer, open the Word together, and share in the journey of faith. That kind of relationship doesn't just satisfy your heart. It nourishes your soul. The person God has chosen for you won't just want you. They will want God's best for you. They'll push you to keep pursuing the plans God has for your life. They'll celebrate your calling instead of competing with it, and they'll walk alongside you as you pursue His purpose. When you are with the one God has chosen, you'll find that your relationship draws you both upward, closer to Him, who is the true source of love. Contrast that with what happens when someone is not from God. Instead of encouragement, there is often discouragement. Instead of being lifted higher, you feel pulled lower. Instead of finding yourself desiring God more, you may notice your spiritual fire begins to fade. That's not what God intends. He wants you to be with someone who will stir up your faith, not diminish it. And when the right person comes, their influence will not only bless your life, but will also keep you accountable to stay faithful. The person God has chosen will challenge you in the best ways. They will remind you of God's promises when you feel weak. They will encourage you to trust Him when you are tempted to fear. They will not let you settle for less than what God has called you to, because they love you enough to see the potential God has placed in your life. That kind of love isn't selfish. It's rooted in God's truth. It doesn't seek to control you. It seeks to free you to become everything God intended you to be. When you are with the right person, you will also notice how natural it becomes to bring God into every conversation and every decision. You won't have to pretend about your faith, and you won't feel ashamed to share what God is doing in your life. Instead, your love for God will be a bond that unites you, something you both treasure and protect. And as you both grow closer to Him, you'll also find that you are growing closer to each other. Because the closer two people get to God, the closer they become to one another. That's why it's so important to pay attention to the spiritual fruit a relationship produces. Does it cause you to grow in love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, and self-control? Or does it cause confusion, compromise, and regret? God doesn't want you to settle for a relationship that pulls you away from Him. He has someone who will make your walk with Him stronger. Someone whose faith fuels your own. That is one of the clearest signs that He is the one writing your love story. So, when you are seeking to know if someone is truly special, don't just look at how they make you feel, but look at how they draw you toward God. Because the right person will not only love you deeply, but will love the God who holds your future. And that kind of love will last for eternity. Another sign that God has placed someone special in your life is the peace that surrounds the relationship. Now, I'm not talking about the absence of challenges, because even the best relationships will have moments of disagreement or difficulty. But deep down, there will be a calm assurance in your spirit, a sense that this is right, that this is where you belong. God often speaks to us through His peace. And when He is in the center of a relationship, you don't live in constant confusion or fear. Instead, there is a steady assurance that, even when storms come, you are standing on solid ground together. The peace of God is not something that can be faked. It doesn't come from shallow words or temporary feelings. It is the kind of peace that settles into your heart, even when the world around you feels uncertain. When God chooses someone for you, the relationship will not stir up constant doubt in your spirit. You won't have to lie awake every night wondering if you made a mistake or fearing whether they'll still love you tomorrow. Instead, there will be an inner quietness, a confidence that God is at work and that He has joined your path with theirs for His purpose. On the other hand, when a relationship isn't from God, there is usually an uneasiness that lingers. You may try to ignore it. You may try to explain it away, but it keeps coming back. That lack of peace is often the Spirit of God nudging you, saying, "This isn't the way." God doesn't want His children to walk in confusion. He leads with clarity, and He confirms His will with His peace. So when you find someone who truly is meant for you, there will be no need to force it, no need to pretend, no need to constantly second guess. God's peace doesn't mean the relationship will be perfect. It doesn't mean you'll never face trials. But it does mean that in the middle of those trials, you will sense His hand holding you together. You will see Him guiding you through the valleys and strengthening you on the mountaintops. It is that steady peace that reassures you that you don't have to do this in your own strength, because God is right there in the middle of it all. Think about it. True love doesn't drain your spirit. It refreshes it. It doesn't leave you in turmoil. It anchors you in trust. When God brings the right person, you will not only feel peace within yourself, but you will see peace reflected in how you interact with one another. There will be kindness in the way you speak, patience in the way you listen, forgiveness when you fail, and grace when you stumble. That is what happens when God is present in a relationship. His peace flows through it like a river, steady and unshaken. Some people spend their lives chasing passion, excitement, or security, But if you truly want to know if a person is from God, look for peace. Passion can fade. Excitement comes and goes. Security can be shaken by circumstances. But the peace of God endures, and it cannot be taken away by the storms of life. That peace is one of His greatest gifts, and when you feel it surrounding your relationship, it is a sign that God has written your story. So if you are praying for God to show you whether someone is truly meant for you, ask yourself this: does this relationship bring me closer to His peace? Or does it leave me restless and confused? Because when God chooses someone for you, you will know it by the calm assurance that settles over your heart. The unshakable peace that tells you, this is the one I have prepared. Another powerful way you can recognize that God has chosen someone special for your life is by the way they encourage and support your calling. God has placed within each of us a unique purpose, a reason for being, and a divine assignment. When He brings the right person alongside you, that individual doesn't compete with your calling or pull you away from it. Instead, they inspire you to step fully into what God has designed you to do. They see in you what God has placed there, and they speak life into your dreams, rather than trying to diminish them. Think about it. If someone constantly discourages you from pursuing what God has laid on your heart, that is not a sign of divine partnership. The person God has chosen for you will never cause you to abandon the path He has called you to walk. They will stand with you, pray with you, and at times even sacrifice so that you can be faithful to God's direction. That's because their love for you isn't rooted in selfishness. It's rooted in a shared desire to see God's will fulfilled in both of your lives. When two people are joined together by God, their callings may be different, but they will harmonize. Just as instruments in an orchestra may not play the same notes, yet together create a beautiful sound, so it is when God unites two people with His purpose. One may be called to lead in a way the other is not, but the right one will never feel threatened by your calling. Instead, they will celebrate it and add strength to it. Their presence will not weaken your devotion to God's plan. It will deepen it. The right person will encourage you when you are weary. They will remind you of God's promises when you feel like giving up. They will point you back to prayer when you're tempted to rely on your own strength. They will lift your head when life presses you down and remind you that God is still in control. That's what love looks like when it is touched by the hand of God. It isn't about tearing down. It's about building up. It isn't about jealousy or control. It's about freedom and encouragement. So many relationships fail because one person tries to confine or reshape the other to fit their own desires. But when God places someone in your life, that person doesn't try to erase who you are. They affirm the work of God within you. They remind you of who He has called you to be, even when you forget. They become a voice of encouragement, echoing the voice of the Lord in your life, urging you to keep pressing forward and to trust that the good work God began in you will be carried to completion, and it works both ways. God brings the right one you too will find yourself doing the same for them. You won't feel burdened by their dreams. You will feel inspired by them. You will want to stand by them, support them, and cheer them on as they step into all that God has designed for them. That kind of mutual encouragement creates a foundation that can withstand hardship, temptation, and trials. It builds a partnership. Both are strengthened to walk in obedience, and both are reminded that they are not alone in their journey of faith. The person God has chosen for you will never be a stumbling block to your calling. They will be a stepping stone. And when you find someone who strengthens your walk with God, who reminds you of His promises, and who helps you become more faithful to the purpose He has for you, you can be sure you found a love that has God's fingerprints all over it. That is the kind of love that doesn't just make life sweeter, it makes your faith stronger. One of the most beautiful ways you will recognize that God has chosen someone special for you is through the peace He places in your heart about them. The world often confuses excitement or infatuation with peace, but they are not the same. Excitement can come and go, and infatuation can fade quickly, but peace is steady, unshaken, and deeply rooted in the assurance that God is present in the relationship. It is a peace that cannot be manufactured, a peace that isn't tied to circumstances or emotions, but a peace that flows directly from the hand of God. When you are with the person God has chosen for you, you don't have to pretend, you don't have to force anything, and you don't have to walk in constant fear of what's to come. Instead, you feel a calm assurance, a quiet confidence that you are safe in their presence and aligned with God's plan. This doesn't mean there won't be challenges or differences, but even in those moments, there will be an underlying peace that keeps you steady. The Bible says that God's peace surpasses all understanding. That means you may not even be able to explain why you feel such confidence about this person, but your spirit will know, because it recognizes the fingerprints of God on the relationship. On the other hand, when God has not chosen someone for you, the opposite will happen. There will be confusion, uneasiness, and often a lack of clarity. You may find yourself constantly questioning if it's right or if you are making a mistake. That is not the peace of God. His Spirit does not lead us into constant turmoil. He leads us beside still waters. When you are walking in His will, He affirms it with the calmness of His presence. Even in the midst of storms, peace doesn't just show itself in moments of agreement, but especially in times of trial. When difficulties come, and they always do, the person God has chosen for you will not make the storms feel heavier, but instead, they will help carry the weight with you. Together, you will find that God's peace sustains you in ways you never thought possible. This peace is a sign that the foundation of your relationship is not built on shallow emotions, but on the unshakable presence of God Himself. Another sign of that peace is that you don't have to compromise who you are in Christ to keep the relationship. If you constantly feel like you have to give up your values, silence your faith, or hide parts of who you are to maintain someone's approval, that is not the peace of God. But when God chooses someone for you, you can walk in complete honesty and freedom. You can be fully who God has called you to be without fear of rejection or pressure to change in ways that dishonor Him. That peace is one of the greatest confirmations that this relationship is not built by human effort, but ordained by the Lord. The person God has set apart for you will bring a sense of rest to your heart, not unrest. They will reflect the love of Christ in a way that reassures you, strengthens you, and calms you even in uncertainty. That peace is not just a feeling. It's God's voice saying, "This is the way, walk in it." And when you experience that kind of peace, you can trust that you are standing in the center of God's will. So, if you are praying for God to show you who He has chosen for your life, ask Him for peace. Not just fleeting moments of calm, but lasting peace that anchors your heart in confidence. Because when the right person comes, you will know not simply by what they say or do, but by the undeniable peace of God that settles in your soul. That peace is the signature of God's hand at work.